Greetings and salutations, Dota fans. Welcome into the International 2013. The preliminary stage getting underway here today. Honored beyond words, not just to be on the mic with you, but to be a part of this prestigious event.
Remaining.
I'm your host, Aaron AC Chambers, leading the way with the play-by-play, dropping the knowledge, giving you the analysis and the commentary. Gonna be my buddy Draskell. Draskell, my friend, the last time we saw each other was back at DreamHack. Always a pleasure to work with you, but let's be honest, DreamHack's amazing, but the International is the International, and we are finally to the where it really begins to matter, to the actual matches, and I am thrilled beyond words. Dignitas leading off against Team DK in our first match of the day.
I couldn't be more excited myself, personally. I mean, seeing Dignitas, you know that I know Dignitas, basically. Like, all of the people who I played with in Han, they're pretty much all in the team, outside of Universe, who obviously was a very, very old-school Dota player himself. But I get to watch them up against DK, who, if you ask anybody, is going to be placing top 8. I mean, that's just what people expect, because DK is obviously a powerhouse team in China. So this for Dignitas is the proving grounds, and the ultimate proving grounds, because like you said, the International, even though it's only preliminaries, seeding is still a pretty darn big deal. So you want to try to do everything you can to get yourself in a better position here, and you could make a really, really big mark here in the preliminaries by taking down a team like DK if you're Dignitas.
Yeah, and exactly. How many times have we seen as well, even aside, like you said, the seeding really matters a lot whenever you're talking about a full double elimination bracket, which is what we're going to have. And what I mean by that is not everyone starts out in the upper bracket. Like, if you find yourself down in the bottom half, you're already halfway out the door before you ever get onto the stage in Seattle. So Dignitas, a team that we've seen have some consistency issues. They do have their own flashes of brilliance, though. But DK, really the storyline to me is this is now the beginning. We're actually really fortunate to be able to cast this. If he follows through on what he said, this is Burning's last season as a Dota player. Like, so this is the beginning of his last time being a part of an event of this magnitude as a professional Dota 2 player. And yeah, we get to be there as he starts that journey. And like you said, they're expected to place top 8, and it wouldn't surprise me to see them just really well up and ride a wave of emotion throughout, not just the preliminaries, but on through to the main event. But speaking of the game in front of us, we can see the bans and the picks well underway. We've got ODDK taken out by Team Dignitas, no IO, and no Lifestealer, courtesy of DK.
OD is just one of those heroes that's made his way into the scene in a very big way ever since, I would say, DreamHack Summer. A little bit before that, too. People are just so unbelievably tired of sending heroes against him, because it's pretty much a guaranteed loss every single time. And he's a hero who can get something ridiculous like a 7 or an 8-minute mechanism that makes it very difficult for you to actually mount any sort of early game aggression, because every time you go somewhere, by that point in the game, the OD is going to be able to either come and stop it himself, or it's just very difficult to deal with him in general. And DK, they're going to first pick up the Alchemist, which is a very versatile hero, to say the least. He's seen mid, he's seen his support role, carry role, pretty much you name it. It's a very ambiguous first pick here for DK, but Dignitas answering with Visage and Darkseer, and this is also a lot of ambiguity, if I were to say anything. So Visage obviously can work in tri-lanes, amazing support, incredibly hard to focus down, and then you have Darkseer, who's pretty much the jack of all trades. So I think a lot of what we're going to be seeing here in the preliminaries is teams doing exactly this. They're going to pick a whole lot of heroes where you're like, well, they could do pretty much anything. And then as soon as somebody gives away their cards first, the other team's going to try to do everything they can to counter. But I will say that I do like Dignitas picks here quite a bit.
Oh, yeah, leading off with the Darkseer and the Visage. You know, the Darkseer, like you said, jack of all trades is really an understatement when you want to talk about that hero, and especially for Dignitas in particular. One combination they love more than anything to put with the Darkseer is the Jakiro. They have a phenomenal Jakiro player in Fogged. He's one of the best, not just in the West, but in general. And the way that they tend to build their lineups when they do manage to get their hands on a Darkseer is predicated on the idea of natural chain of initiation synergy. A Darkseer's vacuum into an ice path with macro pyre to follow, then a wall, and then maybe some sort of AoE to follow it up. Even Visage can fit into that, using the familiars to stun and to just extend that downtime if you're able to catch 2 or 3 heroes. DK, though, I mean, when you look at DK's lineup right off the bat, they're going to want Burning to farm. I mean, it's just one of those teams that you see them grab an Alchemist. This is going to be an Alchemist that I'm sure will have some activity early on, but something that was kind of a bugaboo for DK that really led to them kind of slipping a bit and not being considered on the cutting edge of things when you look back to, say, G League and G1, was they did tend to run a lot of 4 Protect 1. They have gotten away from that a little bit. They do still try to maximize, obviously, their star player in Burning. But at the same time, Alchemist is a nice fit for them in the way that they have been trying to adapt their play over the last few months, which has in general been heroes like Bad Rider, single target initiation, Alchemist has a single target stun that can occasionally catch one or two. But it gives them that aggressive potential, and it's the idea of a good the best defense is a good offense. If you want to run 4 protect 1, sometimes the most effective way to do that isn't to sit back and play defensive. It's to get out and free up space, to free up the map, and just keep the other team so busy. But Dignitas, again, with the front 2 that you said, you got to like the picks because that gives them the versatility to play that style or to play aggressive on their own.
I really do totally agree with the aggression, by the way, and that's the trend that every single region actually is doing now. It's not just we're going to play defensive and try to farm. Sure, sometimes you'll find yourself in positions where it's very hard to make something happen, but typically if you're on the back foot, teams nowadays don't let you get back up. Right. You're pretty much just under consistent pressure. Teams are a lot better nowadays at utilizing the map. Of course, on such high scales, you do have sometimes teams who will make mistakes. Like they'll make a bad play and maybe perhaps they lose some map control. But for the most part, a team like DK is not going to give you the opportunity to come back if they do get ahead. So Dignitas already starting off with those 2 really solid picks. They can pretty much force fights whenever they want. And since Alchemist is a hero who, in this case, if he does go mid, it's very typical to see something like a mech pickup on him very, very early. If he's going to be farming, we might see the Shadow Blade for initiation. And then you have 2 heroes who could potentially initiate, the Bat Rider, obviously, and then a Shadow Blade Alchemist. But both teams just banning out heroes that can actually fight. And Dignitas is not backing down here with their aggressive potential at all. They're going to pick up a Nyx Assassin who, by the way, is probably one of the most frustrating heroes in the world to play against if you're a Bat Rider or an Alchemist for that matter, because anytime you Firefly for initiation, Carapace is there. Anytime you Acid Spray, it's pretty much the same thing. Just a massive deterrent to the synergy right now that DK has, so I'm interested to see what their support pick is going to into here if they actually decide to go for one.
Oh yeah, the Nyx Assassin pickup, I totally agree with you. Frustrating is probably the number one word to use. He has some flexibility built into him too. You don't see a mid Nyx Assassin as much anymore, but it is a hero that can do that. And has snowball potential, has a lot of snowball potential if he gets over-leveled, if he's able to get active on the map, get a quick 6, and begin to move around. And that allows you to do a lot of creative things in terms of rotating heroes, even in and out of a mid lane throughout the laning phase, and just trying to, I would call it a flurry, trying to flurry the opponent down and throw them out of any kind of early laning phase sync. But DK going to go ahead and grab up the Bane. And, you know, right now we're waiting to see what Dignitas is going to grab for a carry. That Bane pick may well have just been a preemptive pick anticipating a Lone Druid, which has not been picked up yet, or banned out, I should say. And Dignitas, of course, with one of the best Lone Druid players in the West, that's AUI 2000. Just really good on the hero. But, yeah, that Bane pick does kind of limit things. It's really hard to pick a hero like that or any number of other heroes that are just completely confounded by being able to be locked in place for a while. It's difficult to confidently pick that kind of a hero once the Bane pick is out. And, you know, Dignitas, they have a lineup that I like, but DK's, I've got to say, I just feel is so well-rounded. Single target initiation, single target lockdown, enfeebled to aggressive potential coming out of the laning phase as well. So Dignitas going to show us a lot more here with this fourth pick.
That's put Dignitas at a bit of a disadvantage, actually, for a lot of the reasons that you just mentioned, because right now they have basically one hero who has decent AoE in the Darkseer. Sure, sometimes you'll land a multiple hero impale, but DK have a significant advantage in being able to just flat-out focus somebody down extremely quick. Now, the later the game goes, it's going to change up a bit because Familiars can start to disrupt, and Nyx obviously getting higher levels into the Carapace makes it difficult for Bat Rider to really do his thing. But during the early game phases so far, unless Dignitas just plan on going a safe lane and dodging because they see a Bane pick, which is often the case because it's so hard to actually focus heroes against a Bane. And if you aggressively tri-lane as Dire, you're putting a lot of eggs in one basket, so I kind of have a feeling they're not going to be doing that. Probably just sack the off lane, which does give Alchemist the opportunity to free farm. So Dignitas have the choice now of what kind of carry they want to try to go for. Obviously, they still need their mid. So the choice is basically, do they want to go for aggression? Picking something like a Queen would be, I think, relatively safe, just because even if it's Bat Rider, you're going to do okay. And if they do want to end up putting the Alchemist mid and picking something else to carry, and maybe Bat Rider Jungler off lane, they're actually going to go with Shadow Fiend. So, I mean, a very high physical damage dealer. It's actually great against Alchemist during the mid game because he has no armor whatsoever, and you can just burst him down. But still, a bit of a risk, and I kind of like it, but at the same time, it can backfire pretty hard, especially with that kind of initiation that DK has.
Yeah, if there's one word that comes to mind with Dignitas' lineup, and I don't mean this in the pejorative, but it's thin. When I look at their lineup, it just feels thin. They have to, whenever they come into fights, it feels like a lineup that for the majority of the game is going to have to be at an inherent numbers advantage. Running 5-on-5, at least based on what we see right now, is going to be difficult for them. And Shadow Fiend in particular feels like quite a risky pick to me because they have so many ways to kill him off quick. Like what you got to do with the Shadow Fiend, and especially if he rushes a Shadow Blade and you start to use his ultimate as an initiation, just but again that's figured out. So you have Dust and Gem, so even that becomes difficult. But when you talk about the single target lockdown that we both kind of harped on so much, Bad Rider, if he's able to catch that Shadow Fiend out, if Bane is able to land a good Fiend's grip, the stun, there is stun potential and ways for them to get Bane out of Fiend's grip. But the big point, as you said, I mean, it's just the Shadow Fiend, as good as he can be against an Alchemist or against many heroes in the mid game, if he's able to stay at an adequate distance and keep himself alive, I just feel like Dignitas can't really afford to come out on the bad end of many fights at all early. If that Shadow Fiend falls behind, DK's just going to get ahead. They're going to be able to play more confident, and then Alchemist will eventually, with an Assault Cuirass, shore up that armor problem, and they're just not going to have enough damage to go toe-to-toe, especially now with an Enchantress pickup. Nice range DPS you're going to get out of her. She can give you a little bit of support help. Of course, Nature's Attendance makes her a terror to deal with because you just cannot kill her early on if she's leveling Nature's Attendance. So yeah, Dignitas, good lineup, and it fits their style. We know that they can run it. But DK just feels much more well-rounded, and I feel like Dignitas is going to be way under the gun. The Doom pick, that's going to be their move.
DK's turn to pick.
I do like the Doom here quite a bit. It gives another hero who, honestly, they needed to actually be able to stand on the front lines. Doom doesn't have great armor, but honestly, the damage coming out from DK right now isn't physical-based at all. It's pretty much all magic. Alchemist is the only person, assuming he's in that farming role, which I'm sure he will be, is going to be the only primary source of that physical damage. And if you Doom somebody like the Bat Rider, even the Bane, or the Alchemist, it just takes somebody out of the fight completely. And this pick actually changes things a lot for Team Dignitas perspective, if I could actually get it out. And DK are actually going to go with the Luna, so it is going to be an Alchemist who is not, at the very least, going to be farming and a pure farm role, because Burning is going to be playing on the Luna. So it's going to be a farming Doom, basically Shadow Fiend mid coming out from Dignitas. And we'll have to see how it goes, because DK have very good early push potential. I'm assuming it's just going to be a safe lane Luna. They're probably going to go for a quick tier 1. Roaming Bane is very, very scary if you're sneaking in this case, because you're going to be a Shadow Fiend mid against what appears to be an Alchemist right now, but that can change very quickly. Bat Rider's likely to either offlane or jungle. So laning phase, I would probably give DK a bit of an advantage here, just because, again, very easy first tower potential. Dignitas is not really going to want to push as fast, just because it's a lot nicer to be able to get your Nyx and Visage 6. So we'll see how it works out, but I do give DK a slight lead here in the early game.
Gotta say, whenever I see that Doom pick, usually what you're going to see, it is going to be AUI, as you had mentioned, sneaking on the Shadow Fiend. Tends to indicate they're going to go mid. I'm a little surprised they're not sending the Doom mid. But, Shadow Fiend is one of those heroes that just desperately needs the levels. Really has to have the levels, otherwise he just doesn't feel all that effective. But as both teams move into the jungle, doesn't look like we're going to have any early blood on the soil. And Drasko is disconnected from the game, and hopefully, I was actually going to mention that apparently your mic's not functioning and doing anything.
Yeah, I'm fixing that.
Hooray! But go ahead and take a run through our lineup, see who's handling who. We are going to have Burning playing on the Luna, as mentioned. Enchantress going to be played by QQQ. Alchemist going to be handled by Super, with Bad Rider setting up shop. They're being handled and setting up shop in mid, handled by ROTK, with Bane going to be played by NY on the other side of the river. We're going to have Way Too Sexy playing on our Visage. Nyx Assassin going to be handled by Fogged. Darkseer played by Universe. Universe, one of the best Darkseer players you're ever going to see. A guy that you want to learn how to play the hero, not just effectively, but creatively. Universe is good to watch. Doom going to be played by AUI in the mid, and of course the Shadow Fiend going to be handled by Sneaking. It actually looks like Sneaking is going to be in the tri-lane farming on this, and this, unless they rotate, they are going to find a double damage rune, but don't know they're going to be able to put that to much use, as it does appear that ROTK is going to give way to Super in mid on the Alchemist and take the Bad Rider into the jungle. So either way, Sneaking's going to be able to get his farm, but they're going to have to manage their experience really well. You don't want your supports completely underleveled, but as mentioned, you just want that Shadow Fiend as high leveled as possible, as early as possible.
Well, this is the right decision from Dignitas. After they saw the last pick, they saw the Luna, they definitely made the change. Like, before, Sneaking was probably just going to go mid, but now that they see that Bane has the potential to roam, obviously MMY is not going to have a whole lot to do here bottom. He can pull to get some extra experience, but Doom versus Alchemist, this is like the war of the we can't do anything to you lane. Like, they both just kind of sit there and hit creeps for a while, and honestly, Aoi is going to be getting the better of this exchange, just because Devour does give you a little bit of an advantage. You can push the lane, you can go for all the runes if he's going to go for a bottle. You can see Super is actually going for the quick bottle build himself, just to be able to acid spray and push out the lane too. So I don't really think much action is going to be happening mid until the supports do start moving, but this kind of passive play, I would normally say it would benefit DK, but honestly, if the Shadow Fiend gets a good start, quick BKB, it's going to be incredibly hard for DK to deal with him because Luna is more or less based on Eclipse during the mid game to really get her damage out, and if she can't do that, then Shadow Fiend mid game damage is incredibly scary to deal with.
One thing that I do think DK is going to be able to fall back on, if they do find themselves in an uncomfortable situation, if they do begin to feel as if the Shadow Fiend's too far ahead and that they are not quite willing to take the risks to try to close the map off, I think they're going to be just fine if they group as 5. You know, and obviously they can't do that all the time. You end up sacrificing golden experience, but when I just look at the team fight potential out of both, Dignitas very much has, and this is the concept you and I have talked extensively about going even all the way back to monthly madness, is ease of execution. DK's lineup, I believe, is going to have a ease of execution in comparison to Dignitas, as we do see. Super takes a little edge on his face, but no, hang on, we are going to have way too spotted out. There's a Nightmare, and then YQQQ getting in position, and they are going to engage. There's the enchant and the net. And Way 2 will be our first blood, almost certainly. No, never mind. Universe. Oh, there it is. They did manage to pick him off. So Universe doing the best he can. The Surge not enough to get his buddy to safety. DK draws first blood, and now they're going to re-engage on AUI. AUI down to about half health. Trying to make it back to the tier 1 mid, but no, too much damage. Here comes Way 2 fresh off the respawn. Doesn't matter. As, oh no, AUI. Nope. Finally cleaned up by DK. Looked like twice, 2 different heroes almost able to make it away, but simply not the case. DK takes an early lead, 2 kills on the board, just short of 3 minutes.
Oh, that was an absolute disaster. Aoi even salved for that too. I don't understand why Way 2 would go for that rune. He saw how aggressive Super was playing in the middle lane. You don't just randomly channel an unstable concoction because it costs actually quite a bit of your mana pool. Right. So Aoi knew that there was going to be aggressive potential coming out. The bottom lane hadn't been there for quite some time because they smoked up and they were going mid. So his thought process to go for the invis to prevent somebody else from getting it completely backfired, and Aoi ended up committing and getting himself killed too. So DK, absolutely phenomenal start. Obviously, Burning is not being pressured here at all. He's currently sitting at the highest CS, 21 and 8. No real surprise there. Burning is going to be burning. But on the other hand, Sneaking, he's still doing a really good job himself. I just really worry when things like that happen because this lane middle was supposed to be something that was at least stable for Dignitas. And not only did they lose the support, but they lost Aoi.
And again, what's kind of scary right now is we're not even seeing all that much concerted pressure coming out of DK. I mean, DK obviously they made a run or two at mid, but with that little bit of a lead, they're going to be able to consider taking this tower down on bottom soon. That's going to free things up for the supports to really begin to put pressure on elsewhere. And it's a situation where we knew Sneaking was going to be under a lot of pressure. So much going to be riding on his shoulders in terms of what Dignitas is going to be able to do to slow down the teamfight potential of DK in the mid game. But now they're basically 100% relying on him. I mean, it's not the end of the world giving up those 2 deaths, but it does mean that AUI is not going to be in the position he wants to be. It does mean that DK is going to be in a much better position with their supports. And yeah, down here at bottom, this is what I was talking about. It just, with that little bit of an edge, now they're going to be able to just slowly make that little bit of an edge a bigger edge. Dignitas looks like they're going to respond and try to push down to them.
It's the only response they can make, because basically, if this tier 1 bottom dies in favor of DK, then MMY and QQQ get to do whatever they want. They can just walk around, they can sit on mid, stop Aoi from farming, keep Super safe, and Super is likely the one who's going to be going for the support items this game, just because that's how Alchemist is typically run in these kinds of lineups. But if they let that happen, then that means that Way 2 and Fog are pretty much stuck to sitting top until this tower dies. So you want to just open up the map a little bit more right now if you're Dignitas to ensure that you can make something happen. Looks like Nightmare is going to be wasted here on an illusion here in the bottom lane, but Dignitas answers back with the 1 tower kill. RTK has also made his way here top because he realizes that he can actually safely farm here, which is something that I don't think Universe has the luxury of doing, because if he gets Nightmared, he is going to be pretty darn dead.
And DK not done on bottom lane, continuing to push through. That's going to prompt another reaction as 1 does head to bottom. They have the potential to try and do something here, try to slow this down. It is down to a quarter. We see the Grave Chill. Here's the reaction. Dignitas, very much, this is their style. They love to bait out overextensions and then TP react to bring in the artillery. Unable to catch up as DK does flee in time. Taking a look at Burning, benefiting quite a lot from the tower gold. Picks up his treads. He's got treads and a Bassi. We'll see what build he wants to go. If he's going to be rushing a very fast BKB or if he'll show us some kind of a hybrid build. Yasha BKB, one of my favorite builds to see just because it allows you to fight a little bit more effectively, makes you a little bit tougher to track down. You can be a lot more active on the map. We see Super's going to be the target. Netted down. Dignitas looking to get on the board. They're going to follow it up with an Impale, and Super Using his wand charges, not going to be enough. Got his ulti off, but regen not that fast. Dignitas makes it 2-1.
That was a very needed kill, too, if you're Dignitas, because of the fact that up until that point, Aoi wasn't even 6. I believe he actually got 6 off of that kill. So now he has Doom, which is going to be pretty much the game turner right now. And Doom can actually be relatively active, especially when he's in this middle role. He typically goes very similar to what an Alchemist would, just kind of supporty type items. We've seen everything from like Medallion to Mech to basically whatever your offlaner isn't going to buy. In this case, Universe hasn't had a spectacular start, so I'm not sure if he's going to be the one who's going to be getting the Mech or not, so we'll have to see in that sense. But I do like Dignitas Roamers still a little bit more, just because Nyx and Visage is pretty much a triple nuke. You have Impale, Mana Burn, and then you follow it up with the Soul Assumption. It's a huge amount of burst damage, so their kill potential still is quite high, whereas DK still needs a little bit of time before RTK gets his blink, which means that they're not going to be able to play that aggressive, at least for a little while. We can see pretty much everyone is kind of sitting on their side of the map right now, which for DK, I don't think they're too stressed about it. They still have a kill lead. This bottom tier 2 is very, very low in comparison to what Dignitas was able to accomplish in the top lane. So DK with a little bit of a lead here, but Dignitas still not out of it.
And DK looking to probably try to bring this tower down. They've got a double pull replays. A lot of little green guys ready to bang this thing down. And Universe hanging around to try to go for a deny, most likely. It is now in deny range at 160. And MMY gonna make his way up. There you go. Looks like Bane's actually gonna take that
bottom
one.
tower has
Universe
fallen.
trying to do what he can, but that's gonna be another tower going in favor of DK. Take a look at the gold graph. We can see those towers plus the 1 kill, basically the separation in terms of the gold, 2,000 in favor right now of DK. The experience hovering right around that same area now. This is where things get interesting to me if you're Dignitas. You know, the map's beginning to break down a little bit. The laning phase is beginning to reach its conclusion. How do you want to go about this? Are you just going to go about this and let Shadow Fiend just get gigantic? How many times have we seen a Shadow Fiend just get out of control and be able to just 3-shot supports even at just 25-30 minutes in? Is that your game plan, or is there something more to it? Like you said, Visage plus Nyx Assassin, a great ganking pair. You put that with the Darkseer, the versatility he gives you. He's able to roam very effectively, a naturally highly mobile hero. Or do you try to play this stable? I feel like really it's on them to set the pace now. And DK, just by virtue of how their lineup functions, can afford to play much more reaction.
I definitely agree, especially since RTK has his blink. There's going to be opportunities for DK to open, and that's what they're going to be looking for. You don't really want to needlessly drag the game out, especially when you have a little bit of an advantage. Granted, it's not huge, but Shadow Fiend is very fragile in this composition until he gets a BKB. If you look at their team, there's Lasso, Eclipse, obviously Unstable Concoction, Enchantress is going to be 6 soon. There's Fiend's Grip on the Bane as well. There are so many things to go on, and looks like Aoi's going to be the first target here.
Yep, Sorrow TK getting into position. And showing off the Blink Dagger brings Doom down again. Now, Doom's not a hero who plays particularly well from behind. He's not I mean, he can to an extent just because of how Devour works and, you know, the fact that he has some gold, extra gold game that he'll gather from that. But he's not a hero you want to, like you said, having his ulti up, that allows him to still contribute in one of the bigger ways, obviously. If the longest single target duration silence. DK taking yet another tower. Now this is kind of what we were talking about, both of us during the draft. This is where things get a little bit scary because we're not seeing DK do much of anything but take targets of opportunity, and they are nonetheless whittling away at the map control, and we're still short of 10 minutes. So Dignitas is in that position now where I don't feel like they can afford to give up a lot more. If they do, they're just going to start to slowly drown. They're just going to feel like they can't breathe, and DK's just going to be able to slow farm the Alchemist, slow farm the Luna, and just take the game at their own pace.
Dignitas losing that mid-tier 1, that essentially opens up the jungle for DK to try to gank if they want to. Now, normally when you try to run into the jungle on the Dire side and you're Radiant, it's very difficult because the tier 1 is pretty much right there. And even if you do smoke, it's so easy to TP react to it that supports can get there instantly and you have a good chance of getting counter ganked. But with that tower dead, it allows them to actually go for sneaking. Bog's actually following him around right now because he wanted to get 6, and Way2 also manages to hit 6 in the meantime. So this is the stage where, ironically enough, everyone's pretty much dead even on experience. I mean, DK are slightly ahead because they have a kill lead, but the supports, all on the board, are level 6. So in that sense, I do think that Dignitas is actually a tiny bit ahead because their supports at 6 are a little bit stronger, in my opinion, and the Bane has to play pretty much flawlessly. Because if you get familiar stun when you're fiend scripting somebody, it's a really, really sad Bane. But for the most part, DK's movement has been spectacular. They have dominance on the map right now, and I say dominance, but it's kind of a term used loosely here. They just have map control.
Yep. Looks like we've got a little bit of attention. Oh, never mind. Thought Dignitas was going to continue through. Both teams had hooked up as 3 and looked like they were going to go headhunting a bit, but not the case. Seems both are willing to pull back a bit. Take a look at the net worth. We can see Shadow Fiend is right near the top, not quite on top though. He's falling down 1,000 in comparison to the Luna. Tower Gold, of course, owing most of that. And yeah, now here we go. DK's going to hook up as 4, and they're going to move their way through. Now, this is a very, again, this is just one of those moments where I feel like if Dignitas loses 2 heroes here, then they may be losing tower somewhere. Or any number of things that can happen. This is where they have to tighten up. They have to tighten up and make sure that this kind of aggression, which they should have an idea it's coming, this kind of aggression cannot. Yep. Probably one of the first targets that got picked off. We were already behind. Now going to be behind even more. As yet another death. Now Universe spotted out there. Unstable Concoction going to catch him from behind. Super with the haste rune. He's got help coming in the Shadow Fiend. Shadow Fiend throws out some damage. Doesn't matter. Impetus from downtown. Makes it a 2-for-0 exchange, and they're not done. Continuing to show their face. Going to pursue them back behind their own tier 1, and here we go. Another Unstable Concoction. Connects with Sneaking with an Ogre Club. A little bit tanky, but not tanky enough. There's the Fiend's Grip. Another death, and this is an, beautiful impale from Fog. Just saved AUI for sure. And here comes that chain of initiation. The impale, the Vendetta, enough to clean it up. Burning was caught with the Doom, and now Super. Going to be pursued out by Fog. Will pop his ulti and bottle, so it shouldn't be a problem. DK beginning to regroup near the rubble of their former tier 1, but that impale coming out of Fog it took a situation that was horrendous and made it a little less horrendous. That was such a good stun.
If that stun didn't happen, I dare say that tower might actually just be dead right now, along with a couple more members of Dignitas, so totally agree on that front. It was like I mentioned before, though, when that tier 1 tower dies, there's a good chance they're going to be coming in your woods at some point, because you don't feel as safe to sit mid if your tier 1's not there. And there was one person visible on the map for about a minute, and there wasn't anybody farming the safe lane when it was sitting right at DK's tower, so that smoke was probably a little bit obvious, but again, it's pretty much the first game of the preliminaries, and some people might have a bit of nerves, but honestly getting caught like that simply it can't happen if you're against a team like DK, because they had everyone committed to that smoke. Imagine if they just didn't get a kill and Sneaking was sitting top farming the whole time, getting closer to his BKB. That's kind of what Dignitas needs. They need DK to run around and not do anything.
Yep.
But unfortunately, DK's movement has been so good, every time they acquire a target, they pretty much get it.
I'll tell you what's scary is Burning just finished his BKB. You're talking a 13-minute BKB treads Bassi, and what makes that terrifying is Dignitas just has, we look at the Shadow Fiend, he's building tanky as well. He kind of needs to against this lineup of DK that you knew was going to want to be aggressive. So he's got his Ogre Club up. He's not far away from his Mithril Hammer, about 600 gold now. But most of the damage that Dignitas should be relying on at this stage of the game is magic damage. You're talking, especially when you're talking Shadow Rays, Soul Assumption, and so on. And with the Luna now able to engage in fights, this could be horrendous. Dignitas gonna be spotted. There's the last hit. They grab Universe. They have to engage off of it. Universe will be able to survive a little bit longer. Now they're gonna re-engage. QQQ's in trouble. And the Fiend's Grip continuing to go off. They're trying to clean him up. There's only lost 1. Universe did end up picked off. Finally, there's gonna be a Nightmare back on the backside of it. Burning was silenced. But this is gonna end up being 3-for-0 so far, and they're not done. Way 2 and Sneaking. Trying to run away. Fight kind of got a little clustered there near that bottleneck in the woods. There's the Unstable Concoction on the Sneaking. Super. Going to continue to pursue him. MMY there. And that's a double kill going his way. Way 2 will be able to TP away, but he will be the lone survivor. And DK opening up a huge lead now. They get 10-3. We got 13 kills in a 15-minute game. Very active, but the activity favoring the Chinese team heavily. 5,000 gold now their lead, and the experience just about 4.
Their fighting is just a little bit better right now. MMY had pretty much immaculate positioning on that Fiend's Grip. He knew exactly where the familiars were. He stood on the opposite side of the fight, managed to get a full duration Fiend's Grip off on the Doom against Dignitas lineup, which pretty much should never happen. But Aoi went in, he got the Doom target on Burning. Burning still hasn't used Eclipse once.
Right.
And they're still winning these fights. That just goes to show how well DK is doing this. The Enchantress, I believe, did buy back for that last engagement, by the way, and RTK ended up falling, so it wasn't an utter disaster, but they're just not winning any fights. Dignitas has yet to really win anything outside of picking off Super that one-time middle, and DK just have no intention of backing off. I'm pretty sure the mech is actually on its way right now here for the Alchemist, so that's going to make their push that much stronger, and they're just capitalizing on the fact that they have massive momentum. I mean, RTK's got a blink and a Force Staff, and it's 16 minutes in.
Exactly. Now, I mean, And you know, this is just one of the strengths of Bad Rider. It's so easy to get caught up on what he can do in a one-on-one situation. So easy to get caught up on how just an amazing initiator he is. But the fact that in moments of downtime, his GPM is just insane. He's just one of those heroes that can just flash farm a jungle over and over and over again if he's left to his own devices. Then he can come right out and begin to pour on the aggression. ROTK definitely contributing that, and it's actually MMY who's kind of the big winner so far. He's 4-1 and 4-2-0 on the Enchantress, 2-1.
Dire's
Bad
middle
Rider
tower
1-0
is
and
under
1-1
attack.
on the Luna and Alchemist, respectively. But yeah, like
fortified.
you said, man, no reason to back off. They know
Radiant's
what
top
ROTK
tower
takes in
is under
disguise.
attack.
That's going to be enough to zone out Dignitas, who really cannot afford to have one of their big heroes caught out. We did see the Carapace whistling them out just momentarily. Unstable concoction, will connect on sneaking, but the tower still going to be reaching its end.
Dire's
Only
middle
2 outer tier
tower
towers
has
now
fallen.
remain for Dignitas, both in that top lane.
This is such a bad situation right now for Dignitas, because unfortunately, losing that tier 2 mid means that, well, good luck getting to Roshan, first and foremost, because you don't have anywhere to TP to, anywhere near the pit. But because those towers are all already dead, it makes a tier 1 top incredibly easy to take. And then your jungle becomes even more unsafe than it already was. And when you can't control your own jungle, that's when you have to start warding ultra defensively. DK, if they wanted to, they could pick up a gem at some point and just assume total map control. Now, when you're in that position, and your Dignitas, as you had mentioned earlier, playing from behind with their heroes is very, very difficult to do. Shadow Fiend isn't even close, why he is kind of close to his BKB, 1300, but in the time that he's trying to farm, he's losing more of the little map control that his team has. And he can't really fight right now, because without magic immunity, he's too easy to focus. Every time they fight, he's sitting on the outskirts, he's throwing out max range raises, and trying to do whatever he can, which at this stage just isn't very much. But DK really have a trap to beat this game. Very impressive.
And you take down the tier 1 top. They're not about to stop. And this is kind of what I was talking about during the draft, and what I meant when I said Dignitas really just could not afford to give up much ground at all early. The onus was going to be on them, because DK has reached that point that I mentioned where they can just 5-on-5 confidently. Fog's going to try to lead off. There's a sentry placed down, and the BKB goes off right on time. Fog caught out, cleans up the Eclipse. Only catching a handful of targets, but not a lot more needed. That's the first time Burning's used his BKB as well, by the way. He hasn't even had to use it, but yeah, that's just so sick. I mean, I didn't see if they had a gem, but oh, hang on. There's going to be ROTK who got doomed after the fact. Got the lasso off first, sneaking, picked off, and the mech immediately used. So this game, I believe, beginning to reach a point of no return, really, for Dignitas. They just can't hold anything together. The map now completely belongs to DK. There's no way they're going to be able to farm anything but in front of their 2-3s.
Tower is under attack.
It's going to take some major
tower
mistakes out of
fallen.
DK to let this one slip.
DK just so experienced. MMY was retreating. He noticed that Dignitas were pursuing, and essentially the only way that Dignitas can initiate is Nyx. So MMY just casually drops the sentry. Fogged walks into it, hoping by chance that he can actually get in range to Vendetta somebody, or maybe even just throw out an Impale so they can actually start a fight in their terms. But as soon as the sentry was dropped, Burning's like, yep, BKB, I don't care if it's one hero, I'm going to use my ultimate once this game.
Yep.
So, I mean, the fact is, he hasn't had to use it.
Yeah, had to make sure his R key still, gotta check the key. But Roshan, now the goal. Here comes Fog again, walks right on top of another sentry. BKB immediately. Carapace is there. ROTK trying to pursue him out. Got slowed by the Grave Chill. And yeah, I mean, that's like up now. Doom actually caught out. And this is just kind of sloppy. Other people toss all around. Against this kind of a team composition, they just split their forces, came in at 2 different angles. And they're going to pay the price. Nice vacuum wall. Best counter initiation we've seen out of Dignitas all day. Shame is it's a day late and $1 short. As the GG does come out following that lost fight. 16-3, the final kill score. By the time all was said and done, the goal 12,000 in favor of DK. Goes Boomskis. And game 1, man. Our first one of the prelims now in the books.
Well, I gotta say, Dignitas definitely did not bring their A game. I mean, I've seen Dignitas play before when they're actually on. This game, they were not on. It felt like there was a bit of lack of communication between the supports. There were some situations where I didn't really know why Dignitas were trying to commit to a fight. Like, for instance, bottom. They kind of just sent 5 people bottom before Sneaking had his BKB, or heck, even his Mithril Hammer for his BKB, where in that situation, as long as the Shadow Fiend is still farming without dying, you can get a BKB, he gets 11, level 2 Requiem is still incredibly strong at every stage in the game, especially considering that no one on DK even had a BKB at that point either, except for Burning, who was getting close. So I think they kind of pushed it because they felt like they were behind and felt they had to do something. But sometimes it's just a little bit better to have the threat of ganking by just having the Nyx not show himself on the map and the Visage pretty much doing the same thing, and just make DK waste their time. I felt like there were two situations that game where Dignitas really had no business getting caught. The 1 4 or 5 man, I should say, that they smoked into Dignitas Woods, that was like super obvious. And then way too obviously walking through the Invis rune when he saw Super like 2 seconds prior to that try to go on Aoi mid. I felt like those two moves especially probably could have been avoided. But still, one more game. I believe these are BO2s, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, so they got another chance to redeem themselves, but I think DK might just be on their game today.
Yeah, it kind of strikes me that way as well. Tough to win whenever your Shadow Fiend and Doom go collectively 0-9. And really, again, it's not that Dignitas was just bad, it was the DK was that good. We'll see if they can roll it up and make it 2 in a row. However, Dignitas, of course, going to want to split the series. We'll be right back with Game 2 of this best of 2, DK and Dignitas in our first series of the day. I'm AC, that's Straskell. Stick with us, guys. We'll be right back.